At the beginning, it was a story of car and gas. An online petition to lower fuel taxes was launched in May 2018, and by mid-October, it had over 300,000 signatures. Outside of major cities, public transportation used to be very good in France, with many lines of trains. But with rail lines being closed, people have to rely on cars. So they drive cars, and this activity consumes a major part of their income. Much more so than drivers in the US, where salaries are higher and state government maintain low taxes rate on gasoline. But let's go back to our car story. Following the petition, the idea for a national blockade was launched on social media. Around the same time, a viral video was posted which proposed the use of high-visibility jackets during the protests, the yellow vests that have since become the symbol of the movement. Finally, on Saturday, November 17th, nearly 300,000 persons wearing yellow vests blocked the traffic on highways and on roundabouts everywhere in France. In Paris, the protesters invaded the Champs-Élysées and even tried to get near the Palais de l'Élysée, where the president resides. At that time, they were being portrayed in the news as anti-environmentalists that just wanted cheap fuel to drive their cars. But soon, it turned out the tax raise was just the last straw. The banners on the roundabouts did not speak so much of gas price, but of pensions, access to healthcare, dignity to be reclaimed, social fabric to be rewoven, and yes, democracy.
500 € par mois et mes gosses partent pas en vacances. Même pas de sport, rien. Je galère tous les mois, je peux même pas changer ma chaudière. Merde alors. Ils vont chez Gucci, nous on va chez Tati. Putain! Allez vous faire foutre avec Gucci. Voleur!
Voilà, donc je viens de Valenciennes, je m'appelle Geoffrey, donc du département du Nord. Je suis venu aujourd'hui parce que je ne suis pas spécialement dans la difficulté de finir mes fins de mois, mais avec mon épouse, on travaille dans la fonction publique. Moi, je suis pompier professionnel, mon épouse est médecin urgentiste, et on voit tous les jours les gens qui galèrent vraiment. Hein, des fois, on fait des gens qui se disent il y a le vin, on arrive chez eux, ils ont fait un petit malaise, on dit mais qu'est-ce qui se passe? Vous avez mangé hier? Non. Avant-hier non plus, avant-hier non plus. Et les gens, ça fait 4-5 jours qu'ils n'ont pas mangé, ils sont retraités, ils ont travaillé toute leur vie. Certains même ont connu la guerre et aujourd'hui, ils n'ont même pas les moyens de se payer à bouffer.
The living conditions have been becoming worse. According to a recent poll, 1 in 5 French is not able to eat 3 times a day. 27% are not able to eat fresh fruit every day. 19% are not able to pay for their kids' school lunch. And 17% cannot afford meat at least once a week. 80% of the respondents said they're worried that their children will have to live in poverty. After 40 years of tearing apart the French welfare state, the victims got out of their homes and sat on the roundabouts of France. There, they protested, blocked the traffic sometimes, built cabins and banners. And they talked to each other. After long enduring suffering, they realized they were not alone.
Eh bien bonjour, je me présente, je m'appelle Ahmed Bouanika, j'ai 50 ans, je suis chauffeur poids lourd intérimaire et je fais partie du mouvement des Gilets jaunes depuis le 17 novembre. Et je suis au rond-point de l'Europe avec tous les Gilets jaunes depuis plus de 4 mois maintenant et j'ai été présent au rond-point de l'Europe tous les jours. Il n'y a pas un jour où je n'ai pas représenté ici à l'Europe. Je suis rentré dans le mouvement des Gilets jaunes depuis le 17 novembre parce que j'estime que c'était important de le faire, étant donné que pour moi, c'est une belle et noble cause. Et il faut savoir qu'aucun parti politique, aucun syndicaliste n'a réussi à faire ce que nous, simples petits Gilets jaunes, avons réussi à faire, c'est-à-dire rassembler plus de 80% de la population. Et pour moi, c'était super important de mettre mon gilet jaune et de descendre dans la rue et de représenter avec tout le monde.
For the first 2 months of the movement, the president was silent. He just ignored it. Then, when it became clear that the Yellow Vests were not going home, he went on TV to announce a few symbolic measures to try and calm the people down. And this time again, he was perceived as condescendent. That only made the Yellow Vest more determined. So they didn't go home. They kept blocking traffic, playing police volleyball, talking to each other during the week, and on weekends breaking showcases on the Champs-Élysées, destroying bands and burning luxury restaurants down. This one, Le Fouquet's, is where the elite has their business meeting and big celebrations. They burned it down, only to rebuild a better version. What did the police do? In a few instances, they fraternized with the protesters. After all, they're also suffering the consequences of the destruction of public services. But mostly, they did what they were sent to do. The repression has been extremely violent, more so than any time since the Algerian War in the 1960s. France is the country of demonstrations, and French are used to taking to the streets. But they were not used to packing swimming goggles as protection against the tear gas the police will always send their ways. Tear gas has long been used by the French police, but its indiscriminate use, together with the LBD, a gun that fires high-speed rubber bullets, means protesters now risk losing a hand or an eye too. Many people were injured, and badly so. Even though most of them were wearing high-visibility jackets at the time they were attacked, they remain invisible to President Macron and his ministers, who deny any police violence at all. But they haven't been completely successful at convincing the rest of the world, because institutions like the United Nations, the European Council, the European Parliament, and Amnesty International have condemned France for the severity of its repression of the Yellow Vests. David Dufresne, an independent journalist who keeps track of the wounds, has counted 38 wounds to the upper limbs, including 5 lost hands, 52 wounds to lower limbs, 3 wounds to the genitals, and 189 head wounds, including 22 people who have lost an eye. Medics and journalists have been regularly attacked, and there have been numerous brutal assaults and a record number of protesters locked up. A Yellow Vest has been jailed for 4 months after he threw a can of rillettes, the French pâté, at the police in Marseille. But no one has been sanctioned for the death of Zineb Romdan. Zineb Romdan was an 80-year-old Marseille local, and she died of her injuries after a grenade thrown by police into her home hit her as she was closing her windows for protection. When Macron recently stated that none of the dead had been victims of the police, he seemingly forgot her. On December 7th, in the city of Mantes-la-Jolie, near Paris, a high school was blocked. There were clashes, stones thrown, cars burned. The police arrested the whole crowd, including the majority of them who had done nothing wrong. This video was shot by a policeman, and his comments can be heard. He says, "Here is a well-behaved class."
Yeah. Quoi de neuf, Winnipeg? Yeah.
This kind of contempt and outright violence is nothing new in the banlieues, the outskirts of the big cities where the descendants of the colonial immigration live and where police violence and racial profiling is an everyday matter. This difference of treatments by the state may explain that this part of France, the colonial subjects, are not very prone to wearing a yellow jacket. The French Yellow Vests have been accused by the government of being racist and anti-Semitic. While this is clearly an attempt to demonize the movement and keep people away from it, it is undeniable that those political tendencies are present in the movement. Not more than in the rest of France, not less. For Act number 21 on Saturday, April 6th, far less people showed up in the streets of France. Is this the beginning of the end? Or will the long, warm spring days bring people back to the roundabouts and the streets? Who knows? But between the slow agony of poverty and loneliness and this, I don't know about you, but I would choose this.